Hi, welcome to this, my 100th episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Aman, sifting my basket of media memories, and in this installment, titled The Bones and Witness Protection, my cataloging turned up the 100th episode of Bones and a mirror image episode of In Plain Sight.
You know this shit's all available on streaming now, right? You can stream all this.
My sister, everyone, and in honor of my 100th episode, I give you 100 clips. Welcome to the show.
He doesn't have it on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.
Despite its patent inevitability, I've known for years I've got at least 130 episodes worth of discs catalog, so long as I didn't step out in front of a bus or, more recently, book a plane trip or something, so long as I kept at it just the way numbers work, I was gonna hit episode 100. But once I did, there was no way of knowing what a significant set of cataloging, archiving, and indeed podcasting this set was gonna represent. I found some of the oldest recordings in my collection, like ancient archives of Monty Python and Faulty Towers, bad recordings from when broadcasters sought to discourage piracy by weakening their signal, which in turn hurt viewership, so they stepped away from that. But now I've got two borderline PBS broadcasts that look and sound like they were filmed through lake water. I found a bunch of random home video recordings, including this indie one-act me and a few friends put together at the Carnegie Center in Minot. I found Simpsons, South Park's, Arrested Development's, Archers. I found significant episodes of Lost, the Show So Far episode of Flash Forward. I got April and Andy falling in love, Michael and Dwight looking for leads in a landfill, Buster in the ocean with a seal, and I had this scrap of life from Kids in the Hall.
On a mean mistreated. Ooh, swamp witch!
I got the pilot episode of Justified, third season premiere of Breaking Bad, first season finale of Human Target, flashbackers to when Chance met Winston, when Mary met Marshall, when Booth met Bones. This said I got series finales of Star Trek Voyager and Ugly Betty. Oh wow, I got Justin coming out and falling in love with a boy, dancing at his mother's wedding reception, surrounded by love. I got healthcare. I archived floor arguments leading up to the House passing the Affordable Care Act in 2010. What a phenomenally hopeful time that was for America. I got Mercy. I'll talk about that later, but watching Michelle Trachtenberg, and no, not her best work, but the reality television Jersey Shore St. Paddy's Day Mercy episode. She was in that. That was fun. And music videos. I put a whole bunch of music videos. U2, The Shins, Sex Pistols, Paula Cole, Savage Garden, and Vogue. I got a shot-for-shot Glee remake of the Vogue video with Jane Lynch's Madonna. I found Sybil. I got Sally Field in the 70s in here. I got her again in the 2010s in Brothers and Sisters. This was a significant set of discs. I got a whole bunch of Daily Show interviews, like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. from 2005. I got interviews with Bob Woodward, Carl Bernstein, Richard Lewis. Oh, God. I got Stephen Colbert interviewing Julian Assange, 2010. Movies. I got Fred Astaire and Cole Porter's Broadway Melody of 1940. I found my original TCM recording of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf in this set. You don't need to scroll back 5 episodes to know why that's significant. And from that same VHS tape, I had Batman Returns. I had Rose McGowan and Julie Benn's Jawbreaker turn up in this set. Dramas. My God, I got Desperate Housewives, Grey's Anatomy, Supernatural, Damages, Caprica, Fringe, Lost, V, Saving Grace, 24. Comedies, I got Arrested Development, Cougar Town, Community, Parks and Rec, The Office, Accidentally on Purpose, a scrap of Whose Line Is It Anyway? I got Wayne Brady and Josie Lawrence singing Rhea Justin Justin while the wind is gustin' gustin', as Colin Mockery grinned maniacally.
This great Gilbert and Sullivan song, Rhea Justin Justin while the wind is gustin' gustin'.
I'm a general, you know. Oh, lassin' a lackin', quick and crack all the way to my back. And no, I do not, cause my back is a bust. Who help me adjust.
I will help you just. I'll crack your back. I will crack your back when you have a rheumatoid attack.
That was insane. This set of discs is ridiculous, and that's just my archive. I interviewed my sister. I found and posted recovered video. I got fuzzy features, cross connections, golden threads, and fun reflections by the numbers. Clips from 100 episodes of VideoFuzzy. I'm 5 minutes into this thing, and I haven't even started. Let's effing go.
And now, VideoFuzzy presents Fuzzy Feature.
Oh my God, it's just Crazy how the set came together. I mean, it's my 100th episode, so I had to be a little bit epic, and when I found the 100th episode of Bones, it seemed like kismet, and then when I realized it was a mirror episode of In Plain Sight, I was like, oh, this is on. The 100th episode of Bones I found on disc 1792, titled The Parts and the Sum of the Whole. We open on John Francis Daly as show psychologist Lance Sweets has written a book about Emily Deschanel as title character Temperance Bones Brennan and David Boreanaz as FBI agent Celie Booth and their time working together. But apparently Sweets never sat down and actually talked with them about the project, because the case he lists as the first one they worked together is not, in fact, the first one they worked together. Bones points this out as a factual error, not as usual subjective interpretation, which she acknowledges as a psychologist he has every right to publish his wrong conclusions. For his part, Sweets points out that his analysis of the working relationship builds from that first case, so he demands to know what the first case they worked together was to ensure his analysis is in fact correct. Commence La Flashbacks. A newspaper crafted to establish the time of their first case together featured the second Bush-Kerry debate, so second week in October of 2004, nearly a year before the show debuted in the fall of 2005. They confirm in dialogue it was 13 months. Body of a young musician, Laura Isbor as Gemma Arrington, is a cross-jurisdictional case. She was murdered in D.C. but found a year later in a New York landfill. Tamara Taylor as Cam Sroyan, a New York coroner, was in D.C., and Booth met with her, and it is clear they have a history. Among other things, Cam asks him about his gambling addiction, and he waves her off. State of the body, Cam suggests Booth contact a forensic anthropologist at the Jeffersonian to get a second opinion about the case. Booth was hesitant, but did ultimately meet with her, actually during one of her presentations at American University. Eric Milligan as Zach and TJ Tyne as Hodgins both work in the lab with Bones at this point, but they are not friends. Hodgins is dealing with anger issues. While Zach and Bones get what information they can from Gemma's remains, Hodgins takes the victim's clothing to do his own analysis of fibrous spores and particulates, which there should absolutely have been some since the victim was in a New York landfill for a year. Bones reached out to a street artist she'd met, Michaela Conlin as Angela Montenegro, whose work with underlying bone structures Bones regarded highly. Bones asked her to recreate the girl's face from the skull she was carrying around the streets of D.C. like some forensic anthropological Hamlet. When Angela sketches the subject based on what information she has from Bones, it matches video they have of the subject, Gemma Arrington, down to her hairstyle. Watching the team gather evidence like this is like watching the first season or so of Enterprise, when the crew were trying out a whole bunch of stuff that worked not great on their way to developing stuff that worked better. Booth seeking evidence to fit his theory. He shows up certain that Judge Hasty is guilty. When they find a splinter in the victim's clothing, Hodgins tries beating Zach with a baseball bat to see if they can get it to splinter. No one should be trying to actually injure Zach. Surmising the old stairwell at the Opera House was how Gemma's spine was bruised without checking the splinter against the wood there was presumptuous. Angela presenting flipbook animation to... I'm so sorry. If she lives to be 100, Patricia Belcher is always going to be the Ennis Silent Judge Hasenteich from her character in Trial and Error. But yeah, the flipbook was unconvincing. And Bones punching a fancy opera-going hoity-toity judge, and, oh yeah, the suspect in the face twice is... yes, high-end wish fulfillment, but also assault. That was assault. You can't call it self-defense. He'd raised no hand to her. He called her stupid, and she hit him in the face twice. Use your words, Bones. Based on this, Judge Hasenteich forced Booth to fire Bones, and he met her at a bar to do so. And earlier, Booth had told Bones that they couldn't pursue a relationship because they were colleagues. Well... not 30 seconds passed from him firing her before she propositioned him. They kissed outside the bar, but then went home separately. Meanwhile, the lab team confirmed that the clasp in the judge's trunk was a good match for the fatal contusions in the victim's skull. The whole thing had been scrubbed clean, so FBI techs couldn't find anything, but all Bones had to do was mention the locking mechanism, and the victim's tiny ear bone, small as a grain of sand, fell out right into her hand. Turns out, Gemma saw Judge Hansy snorting something at the opera that night, and as she was running away from him, the most ridiculous scene imaginable took place on the back stairs, and despite a full production running, he managed to shove her down the stairs pull her around to the back entryway and out to his vehicle, lift her, woozy and regaining consciousness, into his trunk, and then slam her head in the trunk before, I guess, driving her to New York and tipping her, again unnoticed by guards, dogs, eyes, or cameras, into the landfill, where she remained undiscovered for a year. The evidence literally in hand, Booth rehires Bones, and the judge is pulled in for murder. Sweets challenged them on this story. He was determined to prove that they had ever kissed, the dam would break, and they'd be swept into a physical relationship because of mutual attraction in defiance of department protocols. If they weren't in love, he challenged, why had neither of them ever pursued a relationship with anyone else? Well, on the way to that assertion, the gambler and something about fate, Booth out of nowhere kisses Bones outside Sweet's office complex, essentially because he wanted to know. Bones was more annoyed by this than anything else and pushed him away. But Bones herself had written a complex murder mystery involving the two of them as married owners of a nightclub just a year or so before, while Booth was recovering from head trauma. So, I don't know, it feels like she'd explored this exact narrative before, or at least intellectually. Also, I guess we're keeping it a secret from Sweets, but Booth had been in a physical and emotional relationship with Cam for at least part of the series. I guess the writers are demanding that the two of them figure it out, because the will they or won't they on Booth and Bones is way more annoying than Maddie and David. Booth's high drama acceptance of her rejection post that interview traced a weird crescendo, but 100 episodes, I guess they felt like they needed to do something. I ran into the exact same sort of story construction when USA Network's In Plain Sight came back for its third season. There was a story construction that took witness protection agents Mary and Marshall back to their first case together, and it was like, well, I'm not running into the exact same story construction in two different shows in the same set of cataloging and not pulling them in for the feature. The second episode of In Plain Sight's third season, titled When Mary Met Marshall, turned up on discs 1788 and 1789. I needed to pull this up anyway, because, well, we can explore that now. It's the third season. Mary McCormick as Mary Shannon and Frederick Weller as Marshall Mann are a known quantity, settled into a largely cooperative approach to their work as U.S. Marshals engaged in the business of witness protection. But, as we are about to learn, this has not always been the case. In the present day, 2010, a home invasion leads to an apparent security breach threatening a pair of assets, Josh Cook and Janine Casper, as bickering married couple Henry and Claudia, the first witness protection case Mary and Marshall worked together back in 2003. Back then, Mary's a hard-ass misanthrope who's in the U.S. Marshal Service to scoot assets around and not care about them even a little. She's got no sympathy for this pair of witnesses who, the girlfriend of 4 months, hadn't even met the guy's family before that family was violently targeted. Given the choice, they agreed to enter witness protection together. Mary offered her assessment that they should have entered separately. Mary was after the shooter, Kevin McDonald, as Carson. Marshall was coordinating the two witnesses. Paul Ben Victor as Stan, Marshall's boss in witness protection, roped Mary in to look after the girl witness. Mary scoffed, "They've already got a girl in this detail," referring to Marshall. "You should see this guy." And Marshall said, "She's crazier than the killer who's after my witnesses." Stan told Marshall that Mary's team lead tried a half dozen times to shove her off into some other division, and that this could just be their latest attempt. Down the road a ways, they pull off for gas and switch drivers, and Henry and Claudia, the witnesses, are off being cute together in the corner of the parking lot. Mary asks Marshall about choosing his career by the name he was given. Marshall says he's fifth-generation U.S. Marshal. She asked how they reacted to his being gay, which he declined comment. Marshall asked her about her family, and she said long line of alcoholism and bank robbery. She asked him why Witsack, and he said he enjoys watching people define their new reality, a chance for a completely fresh start. She said, or you wake up in New Mexico bleeding from the ears having screamed yourself to sleep. He looks at her. "I do actually wonder what's wrong with you, but I don't actually want to know." "That's the first smart thing you've said," she said, and they resume their journey. Back now in 2010, Mary and Marshall track the burglary by the stolen DVR updating itself, and they find Todd Giebenhain as Derek, a pothead. Derek hangs out at the bar where Henry hangs out, and Henry came up with this hilarious prank on his wife. If Derek would break in at Henry's place and steal a bunch of stuff, including some family photos from before Henry entered Witsack, he could keep the DVR. So sweet. It records 4 things at once. Mary and Marshall are staring at him. "Oh, wait," Derek says, while very high. "This must be part of the joke. Henry's, disappeared. He called him 50 times, but yeah, he sends you guys over like I'm in trouble." "Yeah, No. Then as Mary and Marshall get up to leave, he asks, "So can I keep the DVR?" Mary lunges at him. Marshall grabs her arm. "No, you are not allowed to shoot him." Back outside, Marshall's unpacking the situation. Henry is deliberately trying to create a security breach, but why? "I don't know," Mary spits, "but you know what? I don't care. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of needy, crazy, stupid liars. Seriously, I can't take it anymore. I grew up with them, I live with them, I work with them, and no matter how fast I run or how far I go, they breed and come after me. It's like a zombie movie, except the only scary part is it never ends." How'd that feel? Pretty good. Anything else? I think I hit it all. Back in 2003, Mary gets a call from her sister, which turns into dragging Marshall for how close he is to his folks, calling his mom all the time. While that's going on, they turn their back for a second, and where the hell is Henry? Mary stomps out looking for him. There he is at a payphone trying to call his uncle. Yanking the phone out of his hand, furious, Mary said she'd love nothing more than to use Henry as bait to catch her shooter, but the stupidity is going to get them all killed. She gets Henry to understand that his uncle probably ordered the hit, and if he cares about Claudia at all, he needs to stop putting her in danger. Henry thinks about this for about 2 seconds, then proposes to Claudia with Hello Kitty ring, earning them both an exhausted, disbelieving stare from Mary. Back now in 2010, cards on the table, Marshall sits down with Claudia and Mary talks to Henry. Claudia said the process of starting over killed something in Henry. He's not the guy she married. He tried law school, business school, sociology, and he was just this loser party boy. For his part, Henry tells Mary he was afraid of losing that special bond between himself and Claudia. He was trying to rekindle the just us against the world energy they had at the beginning of their relationship. Mary boils it down for him. "I get that it was sneaky, stupid, and self-destructive. I get that you might have been a nice guy once, but now you officially suck." For her part, Claudia is outraged at this breach of trust and manipulation and wants a divorce. There's a problem, however. Carson, the shooter from 2003, the one Henry and Claudia are in hiding from for their lives, turned up in Albuquerque on facial recognition software at the airport. Because of the multiple phone calls to Henry's number, the shooter tracked Derek to his home, got the intel for where to find Henry, and then shot Derek. Carson then shaved his head, headed to the probable location, the bar they hang out at. Already on the scene, Mary caught sight of something about Carson's energy that was off, and she started shouting, "Henry! Henry!" luring Carson down a deserted street where both she and Marshall collared him. Back at headquarters, fearing for their lives, rekindled that old flame, and Claudia reconciles with Henry. Annoying Mary. He does one stupid thing and she's leaving him. He does another one and she's taking him back. True love. Happy endings all around. When they concluded the case in 2003, Marshall told Stan to snap her up. Mary read people and Marshall did too, and he saw something in this abrasive personality that was going to be valuable to their operation. And we're 3 seasons in at this point, so Mary clearly got over at least some of her antipathy for New Mexico. Both series took storylines half a dozen years removed from the present day, so we had the opportunity to contrast character development. Of the two, I thought In Plain Sight demanded the most from their actors. Marshall has always been just about exactly the same character, but Mary was feral when she entered the Witness Protection Service. In fact, her sarcastic dismissal of the very idea made it a really unlikely move for her, but apparently an argument was made. When we did meet her in the pilot episode, she was still pretty abrasive, but we got a glimpse here of the mellowing, steadying influence working with Marshall for 4 years clearly has had on her. Bones. Booth was always a cocky, self-possessed, mostly professional agent, and Bones was always somewhere on the spectrum. I remember near the beginning of the series she was always demanding a sidearm, but watching her nearly complete lack of impulse control in this first case, only a year before we meet her in the pilot episode, makes that an even worse consideration. The fact that she was macking on Booth in this flashback episode does make the lack of any physical pursuit until this abortive second smooch in the 100th episode odd. I mean, they're clearly attracted to each other. Co-workers bypass fraternization protocols all the time, and they were just exploring Booth's addictive personality traits and Bones and her impulse control. But for these writers at this moment, it was not meant to be. Rather, it was a lovely exploration of a couple of meet-cutes that laid in enough support for, in both cases, many seasons of storytelling, 17 altogether. One other coincidence here, both episodes aired in April of 2010, so I guess both production teams were feeling similar pangs for nostalgia and storytelling at exactly the same time. Well, I'd say everyone did a great job.
I associate many things with many things.
Cross connection. Bones, In Plain Sight, the mystical centers of my media collection. There's just no distance for either of these productions. The mystical centers being Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, 6 Feet Under, Ryan Murphy Productions, and Joss Whedon Productions, or 60 Feet Under Murph Whedon Studios. Nope. Keep trying, I hear you. Mary McCormick was in West Wing with Bradley Whitford of Studio 60, and David Boreanaz is right there, a title character in Joss Whedon's Angels, so we're not. Heck, both Josh Molina and Allison Janney from the West Wing joined McCormick in this episode. It was a little West Wing-a-palooza. Finding 2 of this project's golden threads in the Bones episode was interesting. Chase Kim joined series regular Patricia Belcher. I really should give her actual character name for this production somewhere. Prosecutor Carolyn Julian. Speaking of golden threads, I said I had another reason to bring up the In Plain Sight episode, and it hops up when Marshall figures out the DVR is updating somewhere, knocks on the door, and Derek pops out. Golden thread. Derek is played by Todd Giebenhain, and when I saw that face, I stared at it. Just like with Diedrich Bader in episode 97, Dressed to Kill, I wasn't placing him at all, but I knew this guy. Well, fire up the database. Galaxy Quest? Nah. Dharma and Greg? Slackers? There's a shock. The Ellen Show? Reigns. That's starting to be where he might be in my collection. I got him in the 4400, the original one, the good one. He was in Life, Moonlight, Dexter. I got him in My Name is Earl, not likely. Let's see. I got the Criminal Minds, In Plain Sight, True Blood. Okay, yeah. This is almost certainly it. I got Todd Giebenhain as 50 episodes of Frank and Raising Hope. It has been a while, but Grocery Store Guy? I have to run into more of these episodes, but yeah, that is likely my primary experience with Todd Giebenhain. Fun fact, he also appeared in Bones, and he was in Rizzoli and Isles, Grace and Frankie, and an episode of The Big Bang Theory. But yeah, seasons of Raising Hope, that's the memory he's sparking. Todd's a stoner. No, seriously. It's in some of his character descriptions. Teen in the bathroom, stone test taker, pizza delivery guy. In the In Plain Sight I found him, and he's got a bong on his table there. Like I said, it's been a while since I saw Raising Hope, but I feel like that's the energy he was bringing there too. Todd's all over my collection. As far as I know, he's just about always this guy. Thing is, Todd will tell that part of the story really well. You need a schlub? He will do that. I think he finds that voice and hits that mark. Lights, camera, what? Exactly. And now on VideoFuzzy, a fond reflection. Yeah, the hardest thing in this world is to live in it. Michelle Trachtenberg. Seriously, the first reaction when I saw the news probably wasn't appropriate, but a chat group I was in the Angels series, 5th season, I actually mentioned this episode recently, and the girl in question, Buffy, had a storyline where after that whole saving the world thing in Sunnydale, she hooked up with an Italian vampire called the Immortal, and being jealous exes, Angel and Spike had to hop across and rescue her. So there was a headcanon theory that Buffy also had to babysit Dawn on this trip. Dawn, her little sister, played by Michelle Trachtenberg. Makes sense. I mean, Sunnydale was a crater, so the school was pretty much cancelled indefinitely. Dawn would have to go somewhere, and the chat group determined that while Buffy was running around having romantic adventures with the Immortal, and Angel and Spike were chasing her around like Lenny and Squiggy trying to save her from dancing in a nightclub, Dawn spent the afternoon shopping for sparkle pants, and later that night drove a Vespa into a Roman fountain. So, despite the fact that more recently I'd been watching her perfectly professional work in 2009-2010 NBC medical drama Mercy as Chloe, baby nurse in New Jersey, this set even, discs 1755, 1756, 1777, 1778, despite all her great work over the years, the beloved image I had encompassing her entire body of work was never filmed, exists only in my head. Buffy said it best. Dawn's in trouble. It must be Tuesday. Michelle Trachtenberg wasn't even 40 years old. Along with her work as Dawn in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and, as far as I'm concerned, Angel, she represents another direct link to the mystical centers of my media collection, appearing as Celeste in 4 episodes of 6 Feet Under. She was also in episodes of House, Criminal Minds. She was in the Fall Out Boy music video for This Ain't a Scene. It's an arms race, and as I'd mentioned, she's in every episode of Mercy. For what she actually did on set, I gotta stick with subjunctive case again. I think Dawn's lament, she was just about to burst into song in the Once More with Feeling musical episode, was probably gonna be a showstopper. Imagine the power musical demon Sweet could harness from a mystical construct summoned forth from elemental energies to defy a goddess, but also conflicted about both her place in this reality and her shoplifting, and then to be interrupted by his own henchmen. Seriously? I mean, that song would have been worth an additional 5 minutes and some Busby Berkeley choreo and cinematography. But you're right. It would compete with Walk Through the Fire. It takes its place alongside other fantastical would-have-beens like The Lonely Asparagus sketch and Sir not appearing in this film. Michelle Trachtenberg had a fantastic range, had great comic instincts, more than most young actors I've seen, knows how to find her place in a story and how to tell it. Buffy gave her a lot of comic, dramatic, and horror beats, often in the same episode. Her scenes in the 7th season episode Conversations with Dead People were some of the most effective I've seen from anyone in that show, and she carried herself with grace and talent outside that universe as well. Love and light, little bit. Far too soon.
Video up.
Last time I had a chance to review author and fellow podcaster Kemper Donovan's Loose Lips, the second installment in his Ghost Rider mystery series. Set aboard a cruise ship, the story concerns itself with an all-women, all-the-time, week-long get-lit cruise where the participants get blitzed, meet authors, attend workshops, discuss books, and enjoy fabulous meals prepared by a celebrity chef. Some are also poisoned and shot. It's a bit of a downer, and our Ghost Rider and her friends are on the case. That review posted in episode 99, Getting Up to Speed, and I received the following from Kemper. Wow, I just have to say, it's so gratifying to see a story that I wrote picked apart with such attention to detail. This is every mystery writer's dream. Thank you. Well, absolutely, Kemper, and all the best to you as you continue to tour Loose Lips to the end of March and beyond. I love the Busybody. Loose Lips is a fantastic adventure, and all the best to your 3rd installment. So looking forward to it. Track him down, storytelling in the best tradition of Agatha Christie, and for more Kemper, check out his podcast, All About Agatha, years of he and late founding co-host Catherine Brobeck. Some fantastic analysis and quite a lot of fun. Oh wow, now I'd like to introduce someone who, to longtime listeners, must feel like they already know her. I've mentioned her influence countless times in this production. Patty, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, hi, I'm Patty. I'm Terry's sister, and apparently you guys have heard all about me.
All good.
I feel like you already know me.
But, over the years, I just basically, as I was putting this together, I credited you with encouraging me to watch Bridgerton and Stranger Things. There's bunches of other stuff I should be watching, but you and I both watched Doctor Who since at least the Tom Baker days. I was going to ask, what did you think about Joy to the Worlds?
I loved it. I'm loving all the new season of The Who. I have been addicted to it, and of course I have Disney Plus, so I'm very happy it's on Disney Plus now, so I can actually easily see it. But I am obsessed. Obsessed.
Very, very cool. I was going to ask what you thought of 15.
Not my favorite.
No, I mean, there's a whole range. There's at least 15, so.
Right, but my favorite episode, I think, of the new season so far was the one with the 73 feet.
Oh, wow,
73
yeah.
meters. Yeah.
Oh, that was so intriguing.
Yeah, and it kind of made me feel kind of the same way that Don't Blink made me feel. With the lady that was constantly 73 feet away, and you're just always waiting for, what's going to happen when she turns around. It kind of gave me that same vibe. And I still wonder to this day what she was saying, I guess. For real.
Yeah, actually, I mean, because we never had a window on that, but yeah, you're talking about Ruby Sunday, her,
yes.
God, what are we going to talk about spoilers this first season? If people don't want to know about Doctor Who, please fast forward to the end.
If you don't want to know what happens in TV shows, just stop listening. That's going to be totally ruined for you.
But yeah, I mean, to come to the end of that, and then when she was able to figure out how to use that specific distance to try to save the planet from her own understanding of the timeline, I was really like, wow. And then when she became her, it was like, whoa.
And I think Ruby is such a great character. I'm just such a huge fan of her.
I loved her introduction. I absolutely just loved everything about her.
I know.
That Janice goblin was hilarious.
I almost feel like this season is like a reboot of a reboot.
Almost.
Because there's so many correlations you can draw between Ruby and the first season of Rose Tyler.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, with the new Doctor, and even with you know, kind of the Christopher Eccleston and some of the reflections and some of their mannerisms. So it almost feels like it's a reboot of a reboot.
A friend of mine was saying that he could really see 9 as a war veteran, and I could really see 15 as someone who had worked through a lot of his traumas from how they'd written the doc. I mean, everything that Tennant ever dealt with, everything that Smith tried to shove aside because of everything he was dealing with River, but it was just, yeah. I really do feel like a reboot of a reboot is good, is a really good analogy.
Yeah, and I really think that as the seasons have gone on, you know, it seems like every season they're almost, you know, kind of humanizing the Doctor more and actually making him almost less enigmatic. You know, I mean, if you think back to, you know, I guess if you want to, you know, and go in TOS, you know, the original series, you know, the classic Doctor Who's, and you think of Peter Davidson and Tom Baker and even Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy, who is, of course, brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't have as much emotion to them as the new series does. And it seems like every season more and more of that emotion comes out of that Doctor, more and more of his, you know, internal humanity or his internal, you know, connection, you know, trying to reach out and connect with people and actually sharing something of himself. It seems like it gets more as time goes on.
Oh, I would agree. Yeah, and I don't think it's out of place. Some people really do. They really need for there to be like a separation of an alienness to the Doctor. But I really feel like, okay, well, this is still a character who's approaching the universe in every situation they find themselves. And humanity, maybe it's a broader definition of what human is, so.
Well, it's almost like he tries to teach humans what they are. Like, they don't understand what they are, because he's always talking about how amazing humans are and, you know, what makes them so special. But, you know, that kind of echoes back to what makes him special, too. I
agree. Oh, and you kind of already answered it. How excited are you about April, about the new season coming up?
How excited am I?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, kid of Christmas, I guess, is, you know, I guess the kind of the what you normally used to say. But, you know, yeah, pretty excited. Pretty excited.
I think it's going to be great, honestly. And I wanted to mention, you may be responsible for me even doing this podcast. I've been archiving shows for the past 30 years anyway, but if you hadn't gotten me into Buffy, I might not have ever met my podcaster friend in DC and started my little podcast at the Minot Daily News, and I started this one because I missed commenting on shows. But 100 episodes later, what the hell? No.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm out here doing. I'm just out here making connections. I'm just out here building the communities.
It is great. No, you lent me your Buffy season 2 disc set. I started watching Buffy. I started watching Angel and got involved with the chat group there, and that's where I met Marc. And then I started watching Firefly and Serenity, Dollhouse, and all of the Whedon, like those, like Tim Minear productions, like Wonder. Well, I know, but like the Wonderfalls, the Miracles, Point Pleasant, like all of those things. Basically, I was going to ask, what got you into Buffy? Because you got me into Buffy, so I was kind of like, how did you find her?
Well, I mean, I think I was the right age, kind of target demographic of that show. So, you know, I probably got plastered in the face with advertising, but, you know, I watched a couple episodes and I was hooked. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, because it was so, you know, I mean, I think everybody my age had seen the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, and it wasn't, I mean, it's, you know, yeah, now it's kind of a cult classic, it's very campy and it's very, you know, kitschy and whatever, but the show was so much more different, and I think so much more relatable to, you know, people of that age, that late teens, early 20s, and, you know, even though, yeah, sure, it was about them, you know, killing vampires and demons and whatever, but there were some very relatable things in that show, and especially as the seasons went on, they dealt with some pretty real stuff, and also, you know, who doesn't love a hot superhero chick that kills vampires? So
takes the edge off.
There's a lot of likable things about this show.
Yeah, I thought the WB really found lightning in a bottle on that one. And then when they decided, 5 years, all of you are getting paid way too much, we just got to cancel the show. So they hopped over to the UPN to do 2 more seasons. But, I mean, that gave us the musical. That gave us the wrap-up on the Hellmouth.
Right.
And I thought, it's kind of weird that, you had all of those uber vampires that they were all just down there hanging around, but Buffy never, dealt with them the closest.
Yeah, they were all just chilling in the pit.
Yeah, waiting for season 7.
Right. We had a lot of seasons here. What are they good?
But, yes, the closest thing we had to that was the Master, because
the Master was kind of like he was like the missing link between, the Neandervamps and, the modern-day vampires. You had kind of the Neandervamp looking dude who still, had the power of speech.
Uh-huh. And also, his form held on after she staked him, so it was that was different from all of the other ones, too, so.
Sure.
But I thought it was pretty cool, and also, excellent storytelling. Yeah, Joss is himself. You can't really talk about him without at least a furrowy brow, but,
I know, without getting a little, rationally angry
yes.
But that, I think that, you brought up a couple of shows there that, back in those Fox days of, they'd have a season of a great show and it would develop this huge following, and then they'd be like, nah, it didn't make $100 billion, so we're just going to cancel it. Firefly is a really good example of that, but Wonder Falls and Point Pleasant, I'd actually forgotten about that show, and I loved that show, but I loved Wonder Falls. That was a great show. For probably 2 or 3 years after that, I'm like, I'm going to live in an Airstream trailer. It's going to be amazing. But those are great shows.
Yeah.
Those are great shows, and you never really got a proper ending to them because they canceled them so quick they didn't even give them a chance to really take launch.
That was the thing. And I was following Rachel Nichols on when she went to the Inside, and when she every time I saw her anywhere, I tried to follow the show because it was she was such compelling, goddamn storytelling. She was an amazing actress. He'd find these amazing actors and they'd tell incredible stories, and it would pique my interest for other shows as they moved on to other things. But it's I don't know. Probably I would have been watching Chuck if Adam Baldwin wasn't in there, but it was just God, and everything you learn about actors since then. But
I know. Well,
that's so disappointing.
I think everybody's heard Will Wheaton talk about Adam Baldwin and what kind of fellow he is.
Yes. But, just good storytellers. For example, other end of the spectrum, David Boreanaz. Every time I've seen him in anything, I've been really happy with what they've put together. So, I watched Bones for way too long.
I don't know. I can't get. I'm Team Stuffy.
It's brutal. Yeah. Oh no, I completely get that.
I'm Team Stuffy when it comes to the love interests.
Oh man, yeah. No, I completely get that. And I was going to check. Like I'd mentioned, Bridgerton. When did you get into that? Were you right at the beginning, or
right at the beginning?
Or did you binge?
I watched it. I binged it the first weekend it was out. The first season, the first weekend it came out, it was me and some wine, and I binged it the entire season. I was just going to watch an episode, and then a bottle and a half of wine later, and it was 3 a.m., and I'd watched every episode, and I'm like, oh my god, that is so good.
Shonda Rhimes does. She knows from storytelling, I'm going to say it.
Yes, it was so good, and the casting choices for that show were just insanely good. And when I first heard about it, I thought it was going to be kind of chick flick, which I'm not really that into, but then I kept hearing it's not. It's not like that. It might be set, it might be a period piece. It looks like a period piece, but it's not. And it kind of reminded me a lot of that movie A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger. You know what I mean? It has the look of it, but it doesn't have that vibe. It has a much more modern vibe to it. So I watched it. I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. Now I've seen every episode. I watched Queen Charlotte. Queen Charlotte was amazing too.
Oh, I was going to follow that one as well. She was pretty great.
Yes, and I hope they make another season of Queen Charlotte, because the girl that they got to play Queen Charlotte, she was Fire.
Oh.
She was fire.
Cool. Yeah, I hadn't followed that one up, but that's absolutely one I'm gonna track down now because you told me.
You haven't seen Queen Charlotte? Come on, it's the whole love story between Charlotte and the king and how he slowly descends into madness. You have to watch it. It's amazing.
No, I'm going to, absolutely. And then Stranger Things I finally got to the end of, and I was like, wow, the 80s and the nostalgia, but also good storytelling. I didn't remember any of this happening, but
You know, I wasn't there. I don't know.
How do I know? Who do I know?
I wasn't with the Goonies when, you know. I mean, yeah, Stranger Things is a great show, you know, and they kind of classify it as horror, but I don't find anything really horrific or scary about it.
I think more of the...
You're watching it alone at night, you know, I mean, it can get a little dicey, but...
The vibe, I thought. Like, they were trying to, like, evoke kind of the horror movie imagery of the 80s, kind of, as well as, like, the actual, like, 80s that they were doing.
Kind of like Hellraiser light.
Yeah.
You know, it gives you that creepy vibe without the, you know, yeah, but, I mean, and we're coming up on the last season here. Mm-hmm. Last season is going to be out, and then, you know, every time something ends, I'm like, what am I going to watch next?
Well, what have you been watching? What else is on your screen that we should all be watching?
Let's see. What have I watched lately? What have I watched that's new lately? That's the tough one. I've watched a few things, but nothing that's really hit me hard. Mm-hmm. I haven't been super impressed with anything new that I've seen. I started watching that show. I watch it on Hulu, so I'm not even sure what channel it's actually on. High Potential. I was watching that. That was all right. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was okay. It was cute. It was very predictable, though. I mean, you kind of knew where it was going. But nothing has really tripped my trigger. The thing that I'm really looking forward to, and I think this is happening next month, if I'm remembering correctly, will be the new season of Daredevil that's coming out on Disney+.
Okay.
They're rebooting Daredevil, and I know you're not a big Marvel person, but, you know, the series that Netflix did of, you know, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, you know, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage, those were great series. They were like comic books the pages just immediately put into, you know, video.
Okay.
They didn't Marvel-fy them. They actually left them the way they felt when you were reading them as comics. And so they were phenomenal. And you got Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin and Charlie Cox as Daredevil. It was a great series, and Disney actually got the rights. They bought all the rights from the Netflix shows. They have them all now in their new season of Daredevil is coming out, and I am so stoked about that.
Very cool. I'll keep an eye out for that too. Hey, I just wanted to thank you so much for sitting in with me. This has been fun, and 100 episodes. I was astonished. So and I had 100 episodes of stuff worth to say. And it's partially thanks to you, so I really wanted to appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I mean, you know, I'm glad I could inspire you to broaden your television horizons.
The media landscape, such as it is. Hey, you know what?
I know.
I have seen some fantastic stuff lately, and...
What are you watching lately?
Lately, I've just been watching these discs, because we're not really set up for much. We have been watching Frasier, though, and it's been funny to just watch. I mean, and it's, you know, it's Kelsey Grammer, so it's like, I know that he voted for this, but...
Pieces of shit.
It's like, your character is fine, but my God, man, what the hell?
You're hot garbage.
But we were, before that, we watched, The Nanny. We watched all 6 seasons of that. That was hilarious.
No, we love Fran Drescher. She's, you know,
she's amazing.
Strong, so,
yeah.
You know, Fran Drescher.
Always good, continues to be good, and that was kind of fun to watch. And we're just, you know, watching sitcoms with our meals and that kind of stuff. But, you know, once we get stuff, like I was watching The Umbrella Academy, and mostly what I've been doing is just going through my old media collections. It's been good.
If you haven't seen it already, since you're in Utah, you do need to watch Orgasmo.
I will.
You have to.
I actually think I have it in one of my discs somewhere, but it's like, I've got 770 discs left to catalog out of close to 2,600.
You do know that it's all available on streaming now, right? You can stream all this.
Yeah, but how much would that cost? That would cost, oh goodness, this is all free. And I just need to know where the hell everything is, because I'm still going through it. It's been good. I love to hear your attitude and your voice, and I just love your energy. I just really happy to be able to touch base with you on this.
It's all the vibes. It's all the vibes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Patty. My sister, everyone. Patty, so glad we were able to sit down and talk here for a while. It was so freaking much fun.
That was a hoot!
Diving into my classic collection.
Oh, I was absolutely going to talk about my media collection, no fear of forgetting. Just for a milestone installment like this one, I felt like I had an obligation to go a little bit above and beyond. So, in my classic collection VHS to DVD transfers for this set, I decided to catalog 50 discs rather than the usual 25. This set covers discs 1751 through 1800. That takes me most of the way through my current binder. I've got 2 more episodes to go before I break into the next one. And as I've calculated, likely 30 more episodes cataloging my classic collection. Along with the Bones and In Plain Sight productions, I mentioned a third show up there that worked the same storyline. You're not going to believe this, but the When Chance Met Winston episode, first season finale of Human Target, also aired April of 2010. There was something in the air that year that took us to the meet cute. The writers chose that time to shake things up and all aired that month of meet cutes. Though in a group like that it seems to lack original thought. Oh, I say whatever spark it lacked, the long look back was meet cute. Oh, I do miss my Casio keyboard. Once we get ourselves established starts the healing and rebuilding, but for right now, yeah, this mid-season upstart was not on the level of the others, but theme-wise I wanted to give it some attention as well. Disc 1800, I got a cold open with a tactical team of half a dozen armed men hopping down into Chance's apartment. Shy McBride as Winston is peering at them from around a corner, and they discover his hot coffee on the counter, the international symbol for someone was just here. The scene shifts to a tavern, subtitled 6 Years Earlier, where a handsome blonde comes in and sits next to Detective Winston at the bar. It's Mark Valley as Conrad Hall, introducing himself as prosecutor and assistant U.S. attorney on the Catherine Walter case. He asks about Detective Winston's first name. After some grumbling, he allows that it's Laverne. Detective Laverne Winston. Yeah, it sounds like a girl's name. I also carry a 45 and this isn't my first drink today. You want to make something of it? To which AUSA Hall responds, you can call me Connie if you want. That gets a smile out of Winston. Connie asks how we can get 5 minutes with oh hey, Amy Acker as Catherine Walter. Winston says no, but then texts Connie with the address to their safe house. The scene cuts back to the home invasion. Timothy Robinson, as interrogator for Conrad's old boss, secured the loft. His henchgoons have secured Winston and Jackie Earl Haley as Guerrero. He ties Connie, that is, title character, the human target, Christopher Chance, to a chair and demands to know where Catherine Walter is. Scene cuts back to, I guess, 2004, where Conrad goes to the safe house and is confronted with puppy version of his dog, so I'm guessing that's where the dog came from. Catherine said he's the first lawyer the puppy didn't bite or pee on, so she's calling that a big vote of confidence. Conrad drops poison into Catherine's tea and chats with her about the night of the murder she witnessed. Catherine said she heard a shot, she saw a guy bleeding, and he said a name, Lenore Fortier, then died. Conrad calls Jobert, the old man, his boss. He tells him Catherine didn't see anything and doesn't know anything. Jobert says she's a loose end, insists he finish the job all the same. Conrad asks who Lenore Fortier is, and the old man barks, "Finish the job!" Conrad instead turns to Catherine and says, "Pack a bag, she's not safe there." He tells her he was hired to kill her, got her address from a dirty cop half in the bag, and despite her armed guards and precautions, in less than 48 hours he's alone in a room with her. He said she can scream and he'll run, but his contact will just hire someone else, and he's tired of being a hired gun for ne'er-do-wells. I've never read a John le Carré novel, but Conrad's delivery has world-weary spy energy to it. It's interesting that Detective Winston was his final contact as a hired assassin, and that Catherine's dog is on his floor 6 years later, but otherwise no trace of Catherine. Interrogator Guy then talks to Winston, who outlines his experience of 2004 as confronting the cops who were supposed to have been protecting Catherine, when claiming she was actually the one who'd Rapunzeled him with a frying pan before they vanished. They described Conrad as this lawyer guy who showed up, talked to Catherine, who knew how to fight, so Winston knew he'd been set up. Scene shifts to Conrad and Catherine and her pup in a very off-the-grid, isolated safe house somewhere, which all the same Guerrero was able to find, walk right up to the front door and pick the lock. "How'd you find this place?" Conrad asks. "I never told anyone about it." Guerrero said, "Dude, it's me." Guerrero calls him Junior, and obviously Conrad is a pseudonym. Says the old man's going crazy, phone's ringing off the hook. Conrad's drawn on Guerrero. There's some quick hand-to-hand. Guerrero's not cool and draws on him. "It's the most physical I've ever seen Jackie Earle Haley in this series. You're kind of putting me in a me or you type situation here," he said. A little more hand-to-hand. Guerrero ends up on the floor in Conrad's sights point-blank range. You don't have to make a whole thing out of it. Catherine comes out of hiding, puts her hand on Conrad's hand like she's Guinevere or something, stopping Arthur from killing Lancelot. Back now in 2010, Interrogator Guy wonders why Guerrero didn't kill the asset, or, for that matter, his off-the-reservation old man crazy-making colleague Junior, and Guerrero says, "Well, my heart grew 3 sizes that day." Nice. When Guerrero is tracked and collected by Lenny James as fellow hit operative Batiste, he reports, "All I know is she was here and he was protecting her." Batiste calls in and the interrogator guy is there in the office with Joubert, who orders Conrad dead. Conrad takes Catherine and her pup to meet an old friend of his in the Tenderloin district. As they enter a very familiar space, the loft where all this action is taking place, a rifle is cocked. An older gentleman inquires, "Ma'am, do you know that gentleman you are with is an assassin?" She asserts by way of introduction that that's what he may have been, but he has saved her life more than once that day, that her name is Catherine Walters, and she's in danger. Lee Majors steps into the light and introduces himself as, again, a very familiar name by the 12th episode of this series, Christopher Chance. Asked about it, Conrad notes he has tracked several bodyguards named Christopher Chance over the years, and the current name holder says it's kind of like the Dread Pirate Roberts. Guys assume the name as part of the role. Christopher Chance is the guy you go to when no one else can help, he says. They discuss Conrad's change of heart about his assassination gig, where he sees his path taking him. Meanwhile, Winston's reached out to Catherine and adds this piece to the puzzle. The Lenore is a ship. It just docked in the harbor, and whatever's on it is probably why the men trying to have her killed are trying to have her killed. Speaking of which, Batiste has tracked Conrad and Catherine to the loft where he kills Christopher Chance with a throwing knife. Conrad and Catherine head to the shipping yard, where they share a touching moment on the dock. Connie sneaks across the yard into an empty office, where he realizes 40A isn't a person. It's a designation for a shipping container. 40A. 40A. The number 40 and an A. Well, Connie heads over to the shipping container 40A and finds it completely empty, except for a briefcase. Opening the case, he finds this book everyone's been so hot to find. Just then, Batiste hops out like a big scary spider and confronts Connie. "Hand over that book!" There's some hand-to-hand, there's a chase, there's some gunplay. Batiste explodes the boat Catherine's docked in. The case and the book it holds are lost, sunk to the bottom of the canal. And back now in 2010, Interrogator Guy says, "Wait a minute. All this running around, shooting at each other, where were the police in all this?" Well, back then in 2004, Detective Winston was on the scene. There's a suggestion that he made off with the book. Conrad's back at the loft with Catherine's dog, mourning her when Winston comes in. He said he used his police contacts to find him as he turned in his resignation. He reminds Conrad it's too late to save Catherine, but together they can save the next one. "You offering me a job?" "Sure." Then, full circle from the top of the episode, Winston asks what Conrad's real name is. He says, Christopher Chance. Back now in 2010, there's been a lot of flashbang as Chance battles Interrogator Guy and his henchgoons. Joubert is also suddenly there for some reason. Interrogator confirms that they never found the book, but they suspect Winston was on the scene in 2004 and may have it. So they abduct him, and as the first season finale ends, Guerrero and Chance will have to save Winston. I guess the significance of the season finale showdown is to try and give us a better sense of what it is Chance does and what motivates him. The grouchy, rock-solid alliance the core team has built over the years, an ex-cop and 2 former assassins turned bodyguards, I guess, taking clients and doing stuff. Dedicating his life to avenging Catherine and looking after her Rottweiler certainly seems like it'd be a valid undertaking, and the cliffhanger promise to get season 2 off to a good start. Character-wise, the core team is fun, and I enjoyed the spiritual handoff of the Christopher Chance identity from Lee Majors to Mark Valley. Also, Timothy Omundson is fun as the interrogator, and Amy Acker shown as the emotionally compelling damsel in distress, but one with a frying pan. It was a fine installment, decent meet cute, even if this show and its 2-season run was just not at the level of Bones and In Plain Sight. And now, if you'll bear with me, I wanted to do a slightly different take on the classic collection. I opened up there with a sort of broad brush highlight reel of what I found this time, but I took a little more time with my collection as I was cataloging, and since this was a singular collection of discs, I felt it was warranted. Disc 1751 opened with a bit of confusion. They were referencing Job as wife in the Arrested Development I was looking at, and that was obviously Amy Poehler, but I was also seeing Julia Louise-Dreyfus, so I needed an episode listing with the two of them. My search took me to season 2, and I realized, well, this should have been obvious. I'd just last time cataloged the second half of the one with Martin Short as Uncle Jack, Ready, Aim, Marry Me. The next one would probably be the next one. The thing about that show is they don't mind being a little confusing about where everyone is in their story arcs, and even from dialogue searches, it wasn't clear the specific episode I was looking at. But between Google, IMDb, and common sense, I was able to figure it out. There was a very clear line of demarcation coming up, however, in second season episode 12, Hand to God. Tony Hale is Buster taking a swim in the ocean and getting his hand bitten off by a loose seal, which, as it turns out, had been maltreated by his older brother Job and developed a taste for human flesh, so way to go, fella. Interesting commercials I encountered in this set include a The Gap, pretty khaki commercial set to the theme of I enjoy being a girl, and on the other end of the spectrum, in a Hardee's commercial, a 20-something schlub in an unimproved studio apartment with, it looks like he has his own tiny fridge at least, is barely managing to butter toast, and the voiceover asserts, Hardee's. Without us, some guys would starve. You're doing God's own work. Finally, for that disc, in Goo Goo Gai Pan, a strange 16th season episode of The Simpsons where they all travel to China so a menopausal Selma can adopt a child. The closing credits feature David Silverman demonstrating how to draw Bart Simpson. Fascinating. Still with me? They're not all going to be this involved, I promise. On discs 1752 and 1753, I found a significant 2-part episode of the ABC sci-fi drama Flash Forward, Revelation 0 Parts 1 and 2. This also sort of stood out weirdly enough. I had Jessica Walter in the Arrested Development second season Mother Boy 30 episode, and saying it like that, the event is written out in Roman numerals, so the episode is called Mother Boy XXX, where after Buster lost his hand, Lucille wanted her grandson, George Michael, to stand in as her son for this event. Well, a few tracks later I have Archer confronting Lucille. I mean Mallory. Jessica Walter is his mother, Archer's mother, Mallory, in the first season finale, shooting her sleeper agent's son, Archer, through her bedroom door. Episode titled, Dial M for Mother. Intense. Disc 1753 also included a significant episode of Caprica, Ghost in the Machine, where Eric Stoltz, his father and embattled virtual reality and Cylon developer Daniel Greystone, determines that the Cylon prototype in his lab may be housing the last remaining vestige of Alessandro Torresani as his daughter, Zoe, her consciousness transmitted from her VR scan and avatar. This ends up being where most of my cross-connections are going to show up in this episode. On disc 1754, I found the second in a 3-episode arc of 24's 8th season, 3 a.m. to 4 a.m., featuring Stephen Root as a kind of bounty hunter, I guess, who, speaking of Caprica, Cylons, and Battlestar Galactica, was tracking Katie Sackhoff's character, Dana Walsh. She's more usually Starbuck in this collection. On disc 1755, I found Tony Hale again as Professor Holly, this time as a first season episode of Community titled Beginning Pottery, actually teaching the title class, which gets Joel McHale as alpha schlub Jeff Winger feeling all competitive against an apparent pottery prodigy. Disc 1755, as I mentioned, was one of the ones in an episode of Mercy showed up. I got to see Michelle Trachtenberg again as Nurse Chloe. That episode continued on to disc 1756 and traced a little war between Irish and Italian St. Paddy's Day revelers that blows up in part because marketing geniuses at the hospital thought it'd be a great idea to have reality show TV cameras roaming the halls and the waiting rooms on the off chance anything exciting might, a bunch of young drunk idiots fighting and throwing up green beer everywhere? Yeah, that qualifies. Disc 1756 also features Carol Kane as a drama teacher in 4th season Ugly Betty, and Aubrey Plaza and Chris Pratt as April and Andy are starting to become an item in 2nd season Parks and Rec episodes. So cute. Well, especially after the park safety episode where it's mostly Jim O'Hare as Jerry being a complete beflusterment. While out feeding the hummingbirds, he dropped his donut and fell in a creek, then told the office his sprained forearm was from being mugged, so now they have to put safety lighting up all over the place. Jerry! In disc 1757, I got Timothy Oliphant and Walton Goggins at the pilot episode of Justify, which is a high-energy introduction to the backwater burg of Harlan, Tennessee. No small amount of drama for Oliphant as U.S. Marshal Raylan Givens to deal with. Friends and former colleagues, family, a textured homecoming to be sure, sharp-eyed, blunt storytelling by Elmore Leonard, intriguing characters with complicated backstories, and oh yeah, neo-Nazis straight out the gate. It's all go in Appalachia, but 6 seasons got off to a great start, for sure. Disc 1758, I found Jimmy Fallon hosting the 2005 MTV Movie Awards. Along with the segment honoring the 20th anniversary of John Hughes' The Breakfast Club, Anthony Michael Hall, Molly Ringwald, and Ali Sheedy took the stage and basked in the love. The production featured a jazz age-flavored dance number complete with black and white photography as Mariah Carey sang We Belong Together in a brilliant technicolor, her shimmering red gown popping beautifully even as her dance partners remained black and white. It was a powerful celebration of the early days of augmented reality, being able to present a live stage production like that. The next few discs featured a lot of The Daily Show from 2005, and I'm not spending a lot of time on these. The me I was back then felt like this was worth saving, and I would tend to dispute that. I did archive Jon Stewart's interviews with Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, and the conversation he had with current Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and he needed more pushback on his nutty, dangerous views back then as well, but here we are, and here they are in my archive. I do love that I was able to archive a sketch from Whose Line Is It Anyway with Wayne Brady and Josie Lawrence singing Songs of the Chiropractor, the quick-paced Gilbert and Sullivan-style entry I've got in disc 1760, Readjustin' Justin While the Wind is Gustin', was diabolical in its conception and astonishing in its execution. Well frigging done. Discs 1761 and 1762 contained the House debate on the Affordable Care Act. I didn't watch it in real time, but the run-up to the vote on the Senate bill, reconciliation motions, and then the votes themselves reminded me that we can actually make large, significant changes for the better in the lives of our citizens. I mean, as I've said elsewhere, legislation is often the best we can manage with competing priorities, but as a person without health insurance at this exact moment, I've applied for it during the open enrollment period, and that application appears to have stalled, loving absolutely everything about America's new and thoroughgoing commitment to screwing everything up. Yeah, as a person between jobs with pre-existing conditions and no access to affordable health coverage, I love the hope and optimism represented by this move, and I'm saddened by America's current priorities of plane crashes, destruction of needed government services, loathing, mistrust, bigotry, and hatred. Great job, everyone. Disc 1763 brought the 3rd season of Breaking Bad into view, the aftermath of that plane crash over Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Walt's latest brilliant move to launder some of his own money, which was to singe a bunch in his grill and dump it into his pool. That move probably worked better than Jesse's attempt at a new cook, which turned out cloudier than Walt's or Heisenberg's high-grade product. Heisenberg was targeted by the Salamanca cousins after breaking into his own home after his wife, Skylar, threw him out, but a text from Gustavo Fring, prompted by Mike Armentrout in service of Saul Goodman, saved his skin. Also on that disc, a 21st season episode of The Simpsons featuring Sarah Silverman, more usually on my screen as Ollie Poplopovich in Bob's Burgers, gives Bart some girl trouble, which Homer tries to get his mind off of by taking him to a movie. Kayana Scratchy, Death Out of Balance. A spoof of the very obscure, to me at least, Kayana Scratchy, Life Out of Balance. I tried watching this episode in several different aspect ratios, but it seemed like this 2010 recording stretched well beyond the margins of my screen, so my settings were off somewhere. Regardless of what TV I was using, the series shifted to HD the previous season. This episode also featured Angela Bassett as First Lady Michelle Obama as well, so iconic. This disc also featured the third season episode of Big Bang Theory where Sheldon took some muscle relaxants or something ahead of a public speaking event which he had to attend. He was receiving an award or something and somehow ended up on YouTube with no pants. Season 3, episode 18, The Pants Alternative, aired March of 2010. Discs 1763 and 1764, I found Rose McGowan, Julie Benz, Rebecca Gayheart, and Judy Greer in the 1999 release Jawbreaker, another take on high school inhumanity. After promoting Mousy Wallflower Fern into their Mean Girl group after a birthday prank on their friend goes terribly wrong, her new persona, Violet, gets completely out of control. Oh, and it looks like Marilyn Manson was in this one too, along with Pam Grier. Very cool. Of course, I had to get the soundtrack for this one as well. Some truly fantastic songs. Also in disc 1764, I archived the 1-minute KMOT report on the Minot Daily News staff seeking union representation. My friend Jerry Crom, at the time reporter for the Minot Daily News, remembers it happening sometime in the spring of 2001, which at first seemed shockingly early to me, but I remembered that the union effort reorganized a bunch of newsroom positions, including my own, where I was named features editor. That fall, my 9/11 memories include listening to an interview with Molly Ivins on NPR as I was driving into work, shortly after which planes were crashing into the Twin Towers, and while everyone else was scrambling and doing real reporting, I was putting a food page together for Wednesday's paper. So, yeah, it was that early. I was features editor at the Minot Daily News for a little over a decade. Man, my life is a blur sometimes. Discs 1764 and 1766 included the trippy, if somewhat anticlimactic series finale of Star Trek Voyager. Admiral Janeway's conversations with Captain Janeway and her showdown with the Borg Queen were fantastic, and the escape route back to the Alpha Quadrant was top-notch, high energy, but once they got there, it was all just, oh, you guys, hi there, hey, we missed you. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what resolution I was looking for, but that seemed pretty meh. Just 1765, I talked about at length in episode 96, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. This was the archive I've made of the TCM broadcast, the 1966 Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton, George Segal, and Sandy Dennis adaptation of Edward Albee's phenomenal 1962 stage production by that name. I feel like I've watched this specific production more than a dozen times over the years, always on VHS, because while I archived a digital version to my current collection last fall, this is the first time since it was digitized, probably in 2010, that it has resurfaced 15 years later. It was like finding an old friend. I love that it fits just about exactly to the length of a disc. I could throw it in, press play, and watch a chunk of my... I was going to say life? Personal history? No. Psychological development? I hope not. Just growth? Healing? I really just love this story. I love the opportunity to hop in and drive it around a couple times, and re-encountering it here has just been a point of reconnection for me that is just gratifying. This 1767, I found half of the TCM presentation of The Three Faces of Eve, which I noticed I also archived to my current collection. I got Sarah Michelle Gellar, Jack Black hosting the 2002 MTV Movie Awards. Fun to find 2 presentations of that in this set. Then on discs 1768 and 1769, I found the second half of the Wii presentation of the 1976 miniseries Sybil, starring Sally Field. The first part is archived to disc 118, so that's a separation of 1,650 discs. I'm so glad to be reuniting these long-estranged portions of my digital archive. Speaking of long-lost loves, the second track from my Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf VHS tape was also archived to disc 1769. The NBC presentation of Tim Burton's Batman Returns, starring Michael Keaton, Danny DeVito, and Michelle Pfeiffer in a catsuit. You've got to understand, I was 22 years old. Michelle Pfeiffer is Michelle Pfeiffer, and she was 20 feet tall in an exquisitely tailored rubber catsuit. And Ray?
Girl, please. Nobody's that gay.
Exactly. Dial M for Mother episode. This installment has got everything. Disc 1770. This was the one I was talking about up there with the lo-fi PBS recordings of Fawlty Towers and Monty Python's Flying Circus. Fawlty had Basil dealing with hotel inspectors not well, and Monty Python had us identifying human body parts, including a false nose worn by Graham Chapman as Raymond Luxury Yacht, or Raymond Luxury Yacht, or most accurately, Throat Wobbler Mangrove. Also, we got a fun peek at close order military swanning about.
Go on! Camp it up! Oh, get her loose! Oh, I'll scratch your eyes out!
Other finds including a bunch of music videos, including one by Savage Garden. I had a lot of Savage Garden in my collection. I loved this single. Ooh, I want you, I don't know if I need you, but ooh, I'm dying to find out. This video's got the singer sending a signal out into the world, and a beautiful young woman is trying to respond, putting a lot of effort into getting an antenna and other equipment set up and working to let him know that she's just as interested in him. And over the instrumental bridge, she has managed to broadcast her signal, and these two are finally able to communicate. I don't know if it was the best presentation of the concept, but it's a great song either way. En Vogue's Don't Let Go, Paula Cole's Where Have All the Cowboys Gone, the Ramones' I Want to Be Sedated, and U2's Numb. And in U2's Numb video from 1993, Edge is sat in front of camera and a series of ridiculous things are done to him, whereas in the Ramones' I Want to Be Sedated 1988 video, the band is sat at a table and afflicted by a mob of people doing ridiculous things to them. I got the two videos right next to each other in this archive, and it just occurred to me now writing this. Wild. In this 1771, I had The Incident Part 1, 5th season episode of Lost with the ancient Ricardo and Isabella flashback storyline. The problem with this was the man of science, man of faith dichotomous nature of the storytelling, actions, consequences, just... I don't know how much Carlton Cuse or Damon Lindelof really knew about the Islander theology or their endgame or really what any of it actually meant, but it was cool to see the effects of immortality 600 years along. This 1772, Courtney Cox, as realtor Jules Kiki Cobb on her cell phone, drives her car into a client's swimming pool, so that happened. Episode featured Sheryl Crow as a marketing agent for a wine concern. Also, first in a second season Castle two-parter, Nina Delany plays an FBI agent called in when a serial killer is targeting Stanikanicus Kate Beckett and blows up her apartment with her in it. And I found a significant episode of Fringe where Anna Torv, Olivia Dunham, gets a boost of Cortexiphan so she can identify which building in New York is going to vanish into the alternate dimension. Her life is different than mine. This 1773 gave a last 3-episode arc featuring Stephen Root and Katie Sackhoff in the 8th season of 24. Also, Mary Lynn Rushkow as Chloe O'Brien pulls a gun on her supervisor to force him to let her try her idea to reconnect CTU after an electromagnetic pulse shuts down the operation. You're never going to believe this, but she was right. Also, this just concluded the show so far recap they ran to get everyone up to speed on the one-season sci-fi time jumper Flash Forward. And then we have home movies. This next set was kind of cool, for me anyway. I was so happy they finally turned up. I got it cataloged as home movies, school shows, birthdays, me goofing around with friends, home videos I was able to put together and transfer to video. I see services offering these transfers at $9 a tape, and I guess I'm happy to have been able to find them again. They're a bit challenging to catalog, but I did turn up something I could share by way of example. A group of us got together at the Carnegie Center in downtown Minot, early 2000s then about, to perform a little one-act I wrote. It may have been part of a benefit. I can't find an original script anywhere, but it was fun to find the recording, and I thought I'd share it to VideoFuzzy's YouTube page as an example of what I'd come up with. The cast was me, Nikki Paulson, Andrea Johnson, O.J. Bennett, Randy Monley, Tim Schurseth, Jesse Zimmerman, and C.C. Nucker. We all represented books, reading excerpts from novels, biographies, and other stories. I read from Garrison Keillor's Lake Wobegon Days, Nikki read from Agatha Christie's Curtain, Andrea from Faye Kellerman's The Ritual Bath, Oj from a Jill Murray biography of Salvador Dali called Dali, Randy from Andrew Morton's Monica's Story, Tim from Stephen Hawking's The Universe in a Nutshell, Jesse from Edwin Abbott's Flatland, and Cece from Anthony Burgess's A Clockwork Orange. It's pretty silly, and I don't know if it was my best work, but there are a few moments here and there that I thought were kind of fun. If you've ever imagined the books on your shelves muttering to each other, this was the image I was going for. Anyway, I included the link to the video in my show notes. This takes us through disc 1775, and I thought this being kind of a milestone production and all that I'd cataloged through disc 1800, it's kind of incredible I found this much to say about what I've been finding, but like I said, this was a significant set of discs I felt merited this level of attention. That said, however, maybe I can do the rest as more of a highlight reel. I mean, it was incredible seeing Robin Williams' interview on The Daily Show post his heart surgery, and with all his little heart surgery noises. I mean, the man is a comic legend. Spring of 2010, he was touring his book, Weapons of Self-Destruction. Parks and Rec, I also had the one where Leslie Knope was trying to put next year's Parks and Rec calendar together, but she could not get the 4 living parks directors to get along at all, and Tom was having the worst time getting a decent photo of Marc and Anne. The 3rd season episode of Chuck that turned up here, Chuck vs. the American Hero, featured Mary Pat Gleason and Marc A. Sheppard as, oh hey, Both of them were in short-lived series Middlemen. Gleason played Ida, and Sheppard played manservant Neville. Wow. This 1780, I had Fred Astaire, the Broadway melody of 1940, but I think the best part of that one, well, the song and dance numbers were fantastic, absolutely. It's Cole Porter, for Christ's sakes, but it had little rehearsal and audition segments throughout, and wow, Charlotte Arren, an absolute goofball. She was so here. It's very visual, but there's few elements that translates it.
How do you do? How do you do? How do you do? Oh, me. Me, 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 me. Thank you. Oh, now listen me, please, me, kissy. Such
so much friggin' fun. Arren was credited as a minor vaudevillian, appearing on screen with her husband, Johnny Broderick, as an equally comic pianist. The Fred Astaire reference was stronger for me as Silk Stockings on disc 1781, and has more to do with Billy Crystal in the guise of his recurring Saturday Night Live character Fernando Lamas, his song You Look Marvelous, and I think this was the movie he was referencing, Silk Stockings, starring Sid Cherise as dour Soviet killjoy opposite Fred Astaire as American playboy. Throw your legs into the air like Sid Cherise and Fred Astaire. Let's crazy go nuts. On disc 1782, I got Daniel Day Kim as Jin in the 6th season Lost episode The Package finds himself in a bizarre sensory overload room called Room 23. He turns on a switch, is bombarded with massive chaotic sound and imagery, messages including,
think about your life. Everything changes. We are the causes of our own suffering.
The difference for him is he can turn it on, he can turn it back off again. The subject is generally strapped to a chair in the middle of the room. Sheila Kelly as Zoe shows up and tells Jin that he's the guy who signed off the creation of Room 23. Odd. Jin demands to talk to billionaire investor Charles Widmore, who gives Jin a camera with pics he's never seen before, son and their daughter. This 1783, I had a powerful 3rd season episode of Breaking Bad, Caballo Sin Nombre, mainly exploring leverage and communication issues. The whole episode is pretty much a series of small but significant character development conversations. We open on Walter White just as the embodiment of white privilege, demanding to exercise his First Amendment rights as a simple traffic stop and getting a face full of mace for his troubles, shifting to Saul Goodman back at his office, giving him the lay of the friggin' land. You're a drug dealer, keep a low profile. We got Walt's teenage son, Flynn, chewing out his mom, Skylar, for kicking Walt out, while Walt sits there looking meek as milk. We got the cousins meeting with Hector Salamanca and his ding bell, Skylar, her boss, her old and rekindling boyfriend, and oh yeah, we got Saul again, sitting down with Jesse's estranged parents, seeking to sell their house. Saul negotiating a price about half what they were asking because, oh yeah, the meth lab they had in their basement. And Jesse at the end walking past them with the keys to their house, saying, yeah, I bought it. Get out. The whole thing ends with Walt breaking into his own house. Salamanca cousins are waiting patiently for him to get out of the shower. Mike Armentrout calls Gustavo Fring, Gus calls the cousins, and the cousins leave Walt alone. Crazy pants? Well, a pizza randomly ends up on the roof of Walt's house, so yeah, kinda. This 1784, I had a Big House Boys as a prison band, a drummer and bass player making a break for it, 1st season, so Justified. Also, V returns from hiatus, episode titled Welcome to the War, and there's still big scary lizard people who want to inject you with healthcare and impregnate you with scary babies. This effing shown as Obama-era analogs. I know how when you really don't understand how anything works, it all seems scary and suspicious, but there's a friggin' cure for that called figuring stuff out. And I really hope a big group of people start doing that pretty soon. Where was I? Ah yes, just 1785, the aftermath of that explosion in Kate's apartment and castle, and in another episode of Justified, the camera pans past a chalkboard on the wall of the bar, written, "Age is a very high price to pay for maturity." Tom Stoppard. Nice. Disc 1787, A Colbert Report, April of 2010. Stephen Colbert interviewed a guy who designed a prosthetic arm, which was pretty cool. I also encountered the In Plain Sight and Bones episodes and chatted about top of this episode an hour ago now. Epic. And damages. I guess I wouldn't say it stood out, but okay. Ted Danson is Arthur Frobisher, corporate no-goodnik from season 1. He's in third season now. He's written a book and he's trying to option it for movie rights, and he's got the producer who wants to play, well, him. So Arthur has the production team meet Glenn Close as Patty Hughes, and she's no bigger fan of Frobisher now than she was when she was representing the class action against him, but probably the best part of this whole stretch. I mean, besides Martin Short as an attorney and Lily Tomlin as Ponzi matriarch Marilyn Tobin, it was the actor who cast himself to play Arthur Frobisher chatting with his now doppelganger in full makeup. In terms of who wore it better, well, honestly, Jamie Lee Curtis as Linda Drysdale in Knives Out would have made an excellent double of Ted Danson's Michael character in The Good Place, and Jane Lynch was better as Steve Martin in Only Murders in the Building, but there's really only so much you can do. I did see frequent Daily Show contributor Olivia Munn in an episode of Accidentally on Purpose. That was fun, and oh wow, speaking of, from Sesame Street.
No way!
The Daily Show had Grover's perpetually harried customer from Sesame Street appear as Republican National Committee Chair Michael Steele. I archived this hilarious interview where the puppet occasionally delivered his direct quotes and sometimes approximated, they assumed, his views in the voice of his puppeteer. I got a lot of Daily Show and Colbert archived in my collections. Lots of times I'm not going to cover it, ever really track it down and watch it again. You never know, I might. It's here if I want to. But, oh wow, I mean, Jon Stewart interviewing a little blue Muppet as Michael Steele is just delightful. Oh, Cross Connections as Ugly Betty counted down to its finale. I saw Kathy and Jimmy appear as Betty's orthodontist guiding her through, and It's a Wonderful Life version of her life. She'd never had braces. And then, from Mad Men, I saw Brian Batt, the guy who played Salvatore, show up as Amanda's biological father, complete with Tweety Bird tattoo. Oh, Disc 1793, I got Cameron in Harlan. Justified had Alan Ruck playing a dentist on The Lamb in an episode titled Long in the Tooth. That one is directed by Adam Arkin. Nice. And the episode of The Big Bang Theory I found there, Sheldon's team lost a bowling tournament to Will Wheaton's team and had to dress as superheroes at the comic book store. Wolowitz as Batgirl, Sheldon as Wonder Woman, Leonard as Bernadette, Supergirl, and Raj as Halle Berry's Catwoman. Grr. What else? I had Marc Bergeron appear in an episode of Castle, and on In Plain Sight, Rita Moreno showed up as the aunt of Mary's fiancé, Raphael. And this was cool. In Disc 1800, I had Brian Skala in Hookman, a first season episode of Supernatural. Skala also appeared in Revelation 0 Part 2, Flash Forward in this set on Disc 1753. Interesting to see both episodes in this cataloging effort. Finally, for this segment anyway, I highlighted Todd Giebenhain as the golden thread in my feature up there, but this is such an epic installment I may as well highlight two. Disc 1797 to 1798, third season Breaking Bad episode Green Light. Dean Norris as Walt's DEA brother-in-law Hank has been tapped to head up the office in El Paso, but he's dragging his heels, investigating, some might call it obsessing, about a new supply of blue meth circulating around Albuquerque. He's called in by Assistant Special Agent in charge of his DEA office, George Marquette, played by Michael Shamus Wiles. Golden thread. Now, when I first saw George sitting across from Hank, I thought he was someone else. I thought I recognized him from Community. Well, no, that was Elroy Leonard, played by Keith Davis, a different other actor entirely. A black actor, for one thing. Lighting in that scene aside, I think Wiles is white. But when I started scrolling the database for him, for Michael Shamus Wiles, the actor who was actually in that scene, I was surprised at the presence he had in my collection. Maybe he wasn't in Community, but he made so many other appearances in my media collection, I'm not at all surprised he looked familiar. Michael Shamus Wiles was in Ellen, he was in Sybil, he was in Profiler, Murphy Brown, and Lost Highway. He was in Conspiracy Theory, a couple different iterations of the X-Files. He was in Fight Club, Dude, Where's My Car? He was in Star Trek Voyager. He was in AI Artificial Intelligence. He played Spanky in the 5th season of Angel. Yeah, I had to pull that up. That scene was insane. He was in Numbers, Boston Legal, Monk, The Inside, Medium, Close to Home, Criminal Minds, Life, Justified, Breaking Bad. He was in Iron Man 3, Sons of Anarchy, Grey's Anatomy. He was in the House by the Lake episode of American Crime Story, The Assassination of Gianni Versace. I'd highlighted that one in episode 21, Negotiating an Episode Pilot, the episode featuring Amy Mann covering Drive by the Cars. We can't go on thinking nothing's wrong. Who's gonna drive you home? tonight. Marc Shamus Wiles brings a deliberative energy to his scenes that serves him well in his cop and detective roles, but from his body of work he has some wild roles too, so clearly a range, and regardless of my initial confusion, it was cool to see him here as Hank's boss. Good work. And post my overview of this installment's cataloging effort, this seemed like the perfect place to share the most textured view I've got of what 100 episodes sounds like. With absolutely zero context whatsoever, I give you 100 clips. I'm forever learning new things about my collection. It has featured a couple of few cringe-worthy acts of the sort you would expect when persons desperate for attention meet a project desperate for an audience. It's 2017, and a lot of media is available on Netflix and YouTube and Hulu and Amazon, and a person could easily spend hundreds of hours running all those memories to earth, thousands of dollars accessing them through any pay service. But I've got them all on disc. I just so wanted to be a science advisor on this set, or at least for them to have hired one. Let's put a little bit more science back into our science fiction. Yes? Trapping a millionaire is like setting a bear trap. We don't have to catch a herd, just one nice big fat one. Between the kidnapping and the bank robbery and the car theft and the, oh wow, all of the shootings, where were the police in this endless crime spree of a movie? Just shut up already, you stupid sirens. We harnessed fire, pulling it from the sky to command it and bend it to our will, to create, expand, and to dominate. Oh, wardrobe, seriously, he's gonna need another pair of pants over this. Has anyone seen the pants? And because, yes, I have missed these shows, Nick freaking Offerman running naked around the set of Will and Grace as a sexually dominant bisexual bread-making guru. Say the word Monongahela over and over again. It's all go in La La Land. Mr. Silly Rape. Bye, I'm gonna go live with Sophia Loren. As if to take heated umbrage before marching to her typewriter and pounding out Octothorpe Me Too. A troupe of actors armed with nothing more than a story to tell walk into an empty space and, at their best, create magic. Something decidedly Tarantinian. I can stop obsessively recording this intriguing, timey-wimey display of fin de siècle graphic violence. You're crazy. You're absolutely crazy. They called Einstein crazy. That's not true. No one ever called Einstein crazy. Well, they would have if he had carried on like this. Why the heck did I record this? I guess so I could wonder years later why the heck did I record this. Speaking of a production taking on way too much, Kyle Gass appeared later as the latest member of the Black Eyed Peas. Auto-tune. As Joss Whedon once described a DVD release of Serenity, this is a sex dungeon. Anita Bryant getting schmucked in the face with a pie. Oh my, that is tasty and toasty. Toasty and tasty both. Grand romantic gesture averted. Yeah, it's my fault for recording it, that was an odd sequence of reactions. Actually, I think it might make sense using the Canadian alphabet. Let's all take a moment to remember how that goes. A, B, C, D, E, F, guy, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, buddy, Q, R, S, T, U, friend, W, X, N. Oh, it makes perfect sense. Well, as with any sustained pursuit, some entries are stronger than others. The three wise men included Professor Frank with myrrh, which I am regifting because who needs myrrh?
Oh, death awaits you with nasty, sharp-pointed teeth.
I'm not all raw snakes over here, but that's not cool. James, I found this journal.
I was reading an article the other day, by which I mean I was watching TV, and it said that happiness comes from realizing which things in life you just can't control, and then controlling them, even if it kills you.
What if we all switched wives? Wouldn't that be a hoot? Claudia Cardinal is the adulteress. Hiya! And I'm over here with my heart going peep because... Yes! Kingpin sent me. I am, how you say, welcome home present. A song and dance number that manages to be very clever and tedious at exactly the same time. Thank heavens I've watched a lot of television lately. Thank God it's all this fascinating, right? As a person for whom memories are the most important part of his life, I've lost so much. So many memories are gone. Easily halfway through this journey I'm taking, and what I'm doing with this media project and this podcast is trying to hold on, trying to curate experiences, not just watch whatever's on, but figure out what it meant, what was going on at the time. Indeed, piracy will certainly vanish from the face of the earth if you can't see the show in the first place.
Mary, they're keeping me here against my will. Would you tell this moron I have diplomatic immunity?
Diplomats have diplomatic immunity. You are in witness protection and have no immunity from anything whatsoever. Frankly, these creatures could have been outwitted by 3 industrial fans. We are as gods, we are as gods, we are as gods, we are as gods. Corbin Benson is his father, Henry, a beat officer who hauls Sean in his ridiculous hair. You mispronounced awesome. I've heard it both ways. And as part of celebrating these milestones for this, my 50th episode, I thought I'd take a look back at some past episodes.
I knew it! I called it! Here it is! It's a Ruddy Clip show! Just a Ruddy Clip show!
Yes, I guess, technically,
Mailed
but
in.
I've said lots of things about lots of things.
Wanker!
Here's a sampling from the show so far, and if you want to know more, they're all online somewhere. Starring John Waters as the pervert. Well, that's the first line of his obituary right there. They'd mounted one poor Johnny 5 camera to a zip line to capture aerial views of the crowd. Well, after Obama spoke, there was this huge boosh of streamers that just enveloped that poor little dude. The rig operators kind of floated him back and forth, and he looked for all the world like some kind of completely out-of-place Halloween mummy decoration. You know how you look up in the night sky, you see it, you have to go way out in the middle of Montana, and it should be winter, and there are powerful telescopes available these days to the public, and if you look really hard, it's possible the person who sold it to you is a bigger star than any of the people on that dais. We're talking stars with the wattage they lit some of the scenes in Sweeney Todd. Lights out is what I thought Viacom yelled after the first episode. Taking control of one's own definition of success is itself a means of achieving it. Walt assesses the situation with Agent See-Through and determines what he needs Agent Dunham to do is drop some acid, spap a few electrodes onto her head, tuck a metal probe into the base of her brain, and then hop into a tank of salty water so as to communicate telepathically with Agent Scott. Okay, she says, and does these things like synaptic transfer and shared dream state. The human brain generates a quantifiable electric field, which, yeah, that's how electroencephalograms work, but you're talking about running a wire from her head to his head, and we'll see each other's dreams. Michael Caine's appearance on The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson was a delightful study in dueling accents, not to mention that Craig's impression of him doing a bit was just fun. I can't find a shareable link, but if you go to YouTube and enter Michael Caine in space, you get a really fun outtake reel.
It's Michael Caine in space. Outtakes.
We had a lot of engine trouble, and Mission Control said to me, "It looks like you've blown a seal." I told them, "No way, that's just a toothpaste." What?
Worldwide pants.
You know, nothing that happens in this show really matters anymore. It's all just good, wacky fun. I'm just enjoying it for what it is. Sitting here right now, it hasn't been an hour since I stepped out of the theater. I wanted to tell you all how good Knives Out is. Just how it made me feel. I wanted that to be in my voice. I just loved it so much, and I needed to tell you that. Watch me pull a rabbit out of my labanza, and, well, I can fart all the parts, these dreams, which, the songs, the images, the 80s, do I like it? Do I hate it? Yes.
And Dean Cameron turns to him and says, "You just boned my mom." "Surgery? As an opera? How droll."
So, yeah, I'll show myself out with my Casio doodly-doos.
We'll just stay with you guys.
Balding, paunchy, middle-aged white guy.
Oh my god, it's like catnip. I could never get enough.
It's a Greek tragedy. You know, the kind you get if someone hit Euripides in the back of the head. Woofy! You got some splaining to do!
Where?
Did she stash a bike in the back seat? Because now I've got a hilarious image of Vicki Lewis, a glass of wine and kabuki mask, pedaling along like Margaret Hamilton after midnight to her crime scene of the museum.
But if only we could be connected to the sum total of all human knowledge.
Professor Frank's tennis shoes infused with flubber, and away I go. Oh, this is frightening. Oh, that was painful. The flubber is burning my feet. Yep, I do all my own Foley work. You're welcome. The ghost was basically Claudius with a sheet over him. That was fun. She asked Shaz to find her a change of clothes, yes, before Krista Berg writes a song about me.
Would you kindly refrain from bleeding all over our tiles?
It was nostalgia porn on par with this podcast. Because, oh my god, subprime junk bond derivatives, am I right? Yeah, go kill him, yeah. Pretty sure that's what I had.
Yep, sure.
Oh, me too, kill him.
King said go kill Thomas
Get on
and
your
Beckett. Horses, ride through the night and run him through right there in the cathedral. That checks out. I mean, he's really drunk and on quite a tear. I didn't think it'd just be a good idea to just confirm this well-thought-out plan with him right after he wakes up, right? Just I heard it's kind of a now thing. Oh, I agree. Strike while the iron is hot. Sure. The king's all passed out anyway. I don't want to kind of prioritized bold action there. It's probably what he was aiming at. Yeah, I think he can really overthink these things. And like he said, he's really too fond of Thomas. He'd rather us. No, absolutely, sire. We've got this. Hey, you got a motive to murder me? Let's hang.
Aloha, Second Squad. Be advised the dispatch is officially declaring Friday Hawaiian Shirt Day, because, yeah, that's the kind of power I wield.
I know. Brag. Demon Barber of Fleet Street by Tim Burton featuring Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter.
Of course, because what media collection would be complete without Tweeny Sod by Tim Burton with Donnie Jepp and Helena on a bar stool? No, that's probably fine. You're out driving around in the middle of the night. Why not also pick up a nude woman fleeing an insane asylum and, what the hell, marry her? Or, oh hey, here's a literary reference. Maybe have someone throw a great bucket of water from off stage and ladies will be all wet with their tops. And I come out and say, what happened? And everyone laughs. Yeah, just a suggestion. Why not? Terry's face at this suggestion is priceless. If there were a burlap sack on set, Mike LaFontaine's head would be in it and beaten with a banjo. That's why not. I'm going to avoid the cliche is played actually over silhouetted women dancing while on fire. I think you meant to sing, I'm going to embrace all of the cliches. I will say that this was the most practical opening sequence of all of them, showing the ordeals the captured spy underwent, waterboarding, scorpions, beatings, Madonna singing. It was a good representation of the 14 months he was experiencing in North Korean prison as credits rolled. My dude, your niece and nephew are doing the nasty, and I think, yeah, once they found out they'd have cancelled their plans, your kids in bed together is force majeure. Oh, isn't the sunset as we drift along the Seine so beautiful this time of year? I do hope they're using protection. Stealthily climbing up out of her grave to Lincoln Meyer him across the back of the head with a shovel. Oops, I didn't see you there, Judge. He's accusing witnesses of TikTok Marxism, one operative snarking, stop me if this is to podcast. Gladly. Exchange words and a kiss, the balcony scene, which in our production on Love's Light Wings did Romeo a picnic table ascend. Ray Wise is biting into an orange after brushing her teeth.
So is that a wizard staff? No, I'm just happy to see you.
I love between two guys. For Max prison.
The TJ Maxx prison.
So he'd take off with all his hot wives while the others chased after him, crying that they had a great personality. And then we eat them with our evil lizard people. To a cockney housekeeper wearing Carol Kane's hair from The Princess Bride, who's, oh, thank you, love, I can't stay. Popping in and out like a cocktail party. Prism? Where is that baby? Want incredible entertainment experiences in your lap?
Crazy first, boo!
Of course we mean access to pop culture movies and music on our laptop computers. What else could we possibly, what did you think we meant? Paul Rubens as a vampire is hilarious. His death scene is not to be missed. It extends into the credits. It honestly might still be going on in some capacity somewhere.
Yeah, picture a 6'4" black man, and you're good to go.
So far, this doesn't sound much like Hamlet or a sequel, so your confusion is valid. We gotta leave that up to professionals. Without a script, Benoit Blanc is just Daniel Craig, and the only thing you want him at a crime scene is to look at him.
Bite me, alien boy!
Okay, look, it's comedy. It's a light crime-themed dramatic comedy about a hyper-observant funny pants and his long-suffering sidekick, and then one of the most significant finds was, well, me.
Party!
And if Donald Sutherland hadn't been a bit of a jerk and rewritten the scenes, and if it all just hadn't gone so badly, Joss may have never felt the need to keep it moving and do something else with the property. He may have never been offered the chance by WB to do that. He might have never gone into TV because he had wanted to do movies.
Mm-hmm.
we might never have had Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We might never have had Angel or Firefly. You and I might never have met.
I really am very happy that Donald Sutherland was such a diva.
I know, right?
I wouldn't necessarily, because you got me into podcasting. 7 years later on this, I feel like this has given me a chance to reconnect with people and reconnect with my media collection, go through it and get to talk about stuff that I love. And yeah, if we hadn't met, I probably wouldn't be doing this, and I don't know. Maybe I'd have already retired to the south of France for all of the wonderful experiences I might have had. Except that I was holed up in a room talking about it. But honestly, I feel like this is maybe, although there are lots of indications that we are in Dumbest Timeline, and they are many, I am happy that we got to connect. So, absolutely, Marc, thank you. Well, that was, I snuck a little surprise in there to make it 100. Michael Caine in space. Credit Worldwide Pants. Link in the show notes. And now, crunching some numbers. Every 10 episodes I pause for a show so far a progress report on this project, and despite how jam-crammed this installment has been already, it is also divisible by 10, so let's break it down some. Since episode 90 in October of 2023, I have catalogued an additional 275 discs in my classic collection at about 2 hours each, and 48 discs in my current collection at about 6 hours each, representing nearly 840 more hours of media catalogued since my last check-in. I also added half a dozen episodes of my VideoFuzzy the Soundtrack project since then, which has stretched production times on this project, and since moving to Utah in December, I've not added any new discs in my current collection, though I've streamed a couple movies, 3 seasons of Bridgerton, and 4 seasons of Stranger Things, and based on my conversation with my sister, I will absolutely be streaming Queen Charlotte. She has never once steered me wrong. So, along with some streaming and looking forward to a few things, I'd say I'd made some good progress in this cataloging effort. As of episode 100, I have cataloged 1,800 discs in my classic collection, and 543 discs in my current collection, representing a little over 9.5 months worth of media. I estimated about 30 more episodes cataloging my remaining discs. If I stick to my schedule of an episode every 25 discs, I've got some 770 discs remaining. That's about 30 more episodes exactly, barring surprises, which I've absolutely encountered. I do not know how long that's going to take me. This episode has taken most of a month to produce, but it's also been unusually involved. Without pausing for soundtrack installments and best guess, it looks like the next one of those is going to be a few months out yet, but I'm very hopeful. Since we moved here, I've been able to get after these in a much more compressed schedule than usual, so my hope is to take what advantage I may of the downtime and focus on making some progress. In the meantime, I've very much enjoyed spending some time putting these together at the Uintah County Library when it's open, the Beans and Brew Coffee Shop when it's not, the beautiful weather we've been enjoying here in Northeast Utah, and the kindness we've encountered in our time here.
What I've been watching.
Along with weather and scenery, another aspect of life we've enjoyed in our new home here, we were able to take in a show. Last weekend in February, Ralph and I took in a production of The Nerd at Vernal Theater, the mid-1980s Larry Shue comedy set in Terre Haute, Indiana. This is centered on T.C. George's Willem, an architect in his mid-30s, Kelsey Pugh as his spark-free romantic entanglement, Tansy, and Justin Allred as their drama critic friend Axel. Well, Tansy's about to move to Washington, D.C. to be a weather girl. Willem might even look up long enough to notice, but he's busy trying to design a plain white box for his hotelier client, Jeff Allen, as Warnock Waldegrave. Waldegrave shows up at William's birthday party with Holly Allred as his repressed wife, Clelia, and Bradley Stoddard as their tweener child, Thor, who Axel describes as the poster child for Planned Parenthood. Well, Willem is distracted by Grant Stoddard as the title character, Rick Steadman, the guy who saved his life in Vietnam, showed up to take him up on his visiting him and, maybe staying for the rest of his life. The nerd, Rick Steadman, a chalk inspector from Wisconsin, got confused by the answering machine message and thought maybe William's birthday party was a Halloween party and showed up as Cookie Monster. After this social awkwardness, they play some terrible party games and discover that Rick is the most socially awkward thing ever. I kept waiting for him to invite them all to his van down by the river. Well, after a week of this nerd, card, or really we should call him a nudge, staying with him, Willem is ready to lose it. Rick is completely out of hand. Well, drama critic friend Axel has an idea. They throw a terrible dinner party with what they're calling local customs, in which Rick is offered sand for his tea, hot tar for his face, some cottage cheese and warm water for his meal, and is regaled with tragic tales of the former residents in the apartment ahead of the anticipated riot by wild pigs. Rick hates pigs running through the streets. That quick heads up, lots of residents don't survive. It all comes to a head when William's hotelier client Warnock arrives on the scene and gets covered in cottage cheese and warm water and, incensed, tears up his contract with Willem to build terrible, uninspired hotels. There's a great big blow-up and, well, here's my perspective as an audience member. The cast had a lot of trouble presenting this story. The relationships between the characters are hard to read, and the show has all the built-in awkwardness demanded by the plot and the character development. Essentially, you're watching two terrible dinner parties thrown and attended by abrasive, unpleasant characters, but you know what? I didn't hate it. The plot twist at the end makes up for an awful lot, and I will say this, if I hadn't pulled up some information about this play during the intermission, I'm just sorry to say, but I was ready to walk out. I was like, what story could possibly build on these awful humdrum characters, their terrible business associates, and Willem's social obligation to this truly outrageous character? Well, knowing that Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean himself, had at one point taken on the title character made it a lot more palatable, and reorganizing the events of the play in light of the final twist made the whole thing much more entertaining. Just, without those insights, I was having a lot of trouble understanding how hilarious this was all supposed to be. I don't know if I laughed out loud once, although the rest of the audience was wetting itself over the nerd character and a few others, so I stuck it out and, like I said, redeemed itself remarkably. Beautiful space, absolutely fantastic theater. I wasn't reading this cast for this production exactly, but by the end I was getting some real Mark Lynn Baker energy from Willem, and I already referenced the Chris Farley energy I was getting from the nerd, so clearly some storytelling, presentation, and development was happening, and congratulations on pulling it out. Anonymous good deeds accomplished all around. Well done. Very much looking forward to the Vernal Theatre production of Kiss Me Kate in mid-April. Cole Porter is a hoot. Tickets at vernaltheatre.com. Link in my show notes. Acknowledgements. The crafting of 100 episodes of VideoFuzzy has been a massive project, and while me puttering around in my media collection could certainly be a solo undertaking, I wanted to acknowledge the kind assistance of friends and family without which this project would have been far less interesting. It can't even be a comprehensive list since all sorts of people have influenced me while never sitting voice to track here, including Dale Stringer, Tom Rafferty, Jerry Crum, Andrea Johnson, Robert Olerod, Ert Hall, my artist friend in Florida, Drew Brownberg, and fellow podcasters Faye Wu, Chris Cooling, Billy Flynn and the team at Geek Radio Daily, Elsie Escobar, Rob Walsh at Libsyn's The Feed, and David Hooper at Big Podcast. The team's all about Agatha, She Done It, Damn That Television, Time Shifters, Ashley C. Ford, and Shannon Houston, Lovecraft Country Radio, Mark Evan Jackson, and everyone with the Good Place, the podcast, everyone at Podcastica, all significant influences, plus two more, Arlene Summers and my real sharing Facebook friend from episode 98, Cordy. And to everyone who has helped and supported me in this effort over the years, I wanted to acknowledge my thanks and appreciation, including Angelina Songster, Mark Bailey, Heather Welliver, Billy Lutz, Jesse Zimmerman, Alyssa Sweeney, Nathan Irwin, Kim Files, Nancy Peterson, Kurt Nybakken, Brad Johnson, Austin Titchener, Kevin Donovan, Mikey Heinrich, Shotzi Eichmann, Derek Pick, Julie Wolf, John Allen, Aaron Weichel, and Curtis Coletta, my Bond girl, Randy Monley, my folks, Rupert, Shirley Aman, and most of all, my husband, Ralph Serwa, without whom I couldn't even have gotten this started. For VideoFuzzy, the soundtrack, this seemed like a good chance to thank Mark Leonard Mason and Jessica Schumann and Eric Fundingsland for his help, also Brett Braniff and Drew Brady. And from this episode specifically, thank you to my sister Patty Ellingson for all that fantastic energy. Seriously, wow. Thank you all so much for this, for all this, for 100 episodes. I did 100 episodes of something. Honest to God, I have no idea, but it feels like we've got proof of concept here, absolutely. To 100 more. Beyond that, it's long past time to get this one in the feed. Thank you all for checking out my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at videofuzzy.blogspot.com. For past episodes, add, follow, and subscribe to VideoFuzzy everywhere you get your podcasts. If you get a chance, please check out my VideoFuzzy the soundtrack entries as well. Feedback is always appreciated, and contact me through my blog or podcast sites. You email to tjaman1970@yahoo.com or through my VideoFuzzy pages on Instagram and Threads. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing. It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find it together on VideoFuzzy. Hiya, I'm Terry J. Aman, host of VideoFuzzy, your source for media, commentary, and nostalgia. And in episode 100... I did 100 episodes of something titled The Bones of the Witness Protection. I talk about 2, actually 3, meet-cute episodes from Bones, In Plain Sight, and Human Target that turned up in my collection, all from April of 2010.
You do know it's all available on streaming now, right? You can stream all this.
My sister, everyone, plus Cross Connections, Fond Reflections, a deep dive on my classic collection, by the numbers, and, okay, from 100 episodes, I give you 100 clips. For all this and more, add, follow, and subscribe to VideoFuzzy wherever your podcasts. Happy viewing!